Good morning. I am going to give you a demonstration of a crosswalk with a tactile warning strip on it. And I'm at an intersection not far from my home, and there's 4 of them. There's one right in front of me. There's another one that's covered with leaves. There's one over just right across the street, and again right across the street. Now these are curb ramps for people with wheelchairs and walkers to be able to access the roadway without having to step down onto a curb. And the reason why we need the hazard strips is for people with visual impairments, so that they know when in their fact they are walking on the sidewalk and are crossing onto the road. It's a sort of a problem of the intersection of 2 disabilities, one having to access the road and get across when they're in wheelchairs, and the other is having to access the road and cross the road safely if you're visually impaired. So these are well done, these crosswalks, and I strongly support the design of a crosswalk where there are 90-degree angles and there's a clear end to the curb, because it allows a person actually to be safer. When you have the fanned curb cuts that we sometimes see, in which municipalities are putting in, and they should that are according to the MMCD standards, the fans actually create a real serious issue, safety issue for people with visual impairments, because they transition straight from the sidewalk straight down onto the road without knowing that they're on the road. The same with a person in a wheelchair. They'll flow down the curb fan and end up in the middle of the road and end up in the middle of the intersection, which is really not where you want them to be. You want them to be off of the intersection. Now we're going to take a look at these particular hazard strips that have been designed, and of course the color is to the standards, the ASA standards, the American with Disabilities Act standards, with the British Columbia Building Code standards, and the Canadian Canadian Standards Association. They have standards with respect to installing these hazards. And you'll notice that these are well installed, in that the domes, the hazard domes, are aligned properly to go down the ramp. Sometimes these are installed incorrectly, and they're installed at angles. In other words, there's sort of a diamond shape rather than a linear shape of the spacing in between the domes. And the reason why we want to have that spacing between the domes is so that a person with a walker can actually run their wheels between the domes and not have them run over the tops of the domes and then have a really bumpy ride down to get across the road. The color contrasting is really, really critical, and I'll explain that a little bit by, I'm going to show you, these are cards that are created by the CNIB, the Canadian National Institute for the Blind. And you'll get the other side here. There's 2 of them. I use these for demonstrations often, and you put them over your eyes to see the various different types of conditions that people have. So you can see whether there's macular degeneration, cataracts, glaucoma, diabetic retinopathy, or total blindness in trying to navigate in the environment. So I'm going to run one of these over the film, over the card here, and try to show you what it looks like for somebody when they're crossing these things, when they have a certain type of visual disability. So let me bring this card up to the lens. So the person with a visual disability, when they're coming and approaching this walkway with a visual disability, that includes macular degeneration. This is what they see. It's blanked out. Everything is blanked out. Say you're taking a look at those mountains, they're blanked out. That's what people see. This is why having the color contrast becomes so critical. Just because within the periphery they can see that there is something in front of them as they're scanning. The next one is cataracts. And I explained a long time ago in one of my earlier comments about the change in the visual acuity of the senior. Well, this is what happens when a senior has cataracts, and this is what they see. And when they look up at the mountains, that's what they see. Glaucoma. When you have a glaucoma, a disability with glaucoma, this is what you see. Looking down the road, this is what you see. No periphery vision. Diabetic retinopathy. Let's see what I can do about getting that one on here. This is what you see. It's like Swiss cheese through your lens. And it's... I hope I'm not making anybody dizzy looking at this, but that's what you see. Total blindness, of course. You see nothing when you have a total visual impairment. So the benefit of these hazard strips to a certain extent are beneficial, absolutely, when you have visual acuity and you're able to see and navigate around them. The disadvantage is if you don't have complete visual acuity and you're seeing them through the lens of somebody with a disability, with a visual disability. The color contrast is really critical. And that's why these colors are being changed and implemented here in the design community. A lot of the community don't like to see these brilliant yellow colors, but that is one of the color contrasts that the most senior eye can see and distinguish. There are other colors now in this product, and they are usually a rust, almost a burnt rust. And again, the color contrast between the gray of the sidewalk and this hazard strip would be more pronounced. So the safest crosswalks are where curb ramps lead people directly into and across the road. And these need to be 90 degrees from each other. If these are consistently applied within a community, then a person who is visually impaired, who has learned to work and walk around this community, can do so safely because they can predict their engagement at the crosswalk. If there's no consistency in applying these standards, that person who has learned to walk in this environment, in this place, which is Norgate, and they have a different type of crosswalk to engage in, may actually be a hazard for themselves with not being able to walk and cross the road safely because of unpredictability and inconsistency in the design in the urban environment. I want to suggest that you go to my website at www.ourdesigns.ca and download an article, actually a book that I've written. It was funded by the 2010 Olympics, the Legacy Now Measuring Up community, and it is a booklet. And it's a 10 megabyte booklet you can freely download from my website under Articles, News, and Publications. And it looks like this. Ensuring Accessibility, Plan and Design for Choice, Universal Design Guidelines for Outdoor Spaces. And in that book, there are guidelines, particularly in the design of crosswalks. Those are all my illustrations showing various different configurations using these hazardous tactile warning strips. And that's the end of my presentation. I hope it was enlightening for everybody, and you might find my booklet useful sometime. In parts of it, there's actually one part I want to show you while I have this video running. And it talks about the process of becoming disabled and what it does to your... Well, firstly, real quick, there is a diagram on the different models of disability, and I pretty much started working in this area in 1984 actually, when Ron Mace was still alive. So at that given point, inside buildings, gardens, parks, and open spaces, that's when I started all my work in working with people with disabilities here in North America. Particularly advocating for people with disabilities and universal design. And when you look at the section on risk factors, physical and sensory, for a range of abilities, you'll find a schematic that I created regarding quality of life and what a disability, the disabling process, and what happens for that person and all the changes that occur in their lives. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.